of the Borough of Keyport, Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. Let the minutes show that adequate notice of this meeting as required by Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, has been provided by the annual notice, which has been posted on the bulletin boards filed with the Borough Clerk and has been sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Independent, the Star Ledger, and the Two River Times.
Thank you. Can I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Cooper.
This will be a reminder that everyone has to unmute yourself for the roll call, please.
Councilmember
Here.
Cooper.
Here.
Councilmember Fotopoulos.
Here.
Councilmember Good.
Here.
Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Here.
Councilmember Sheridan.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
And for the record, Borough Administrator Jay Delaney.
Here.
And Attorney Mark Moon. Attorney Mark Moon. He's here. I see him.
Mr. Moon, do you want to just test your audio? We couldn't hear you. I'm not sure why.
Mark, test your audio.
He's working on it.
Okay.
It looks like you just said something, but we didn't hear you, Mark.
How about now?
Bingo.
Cool.
Thank you. Okay. I think you'll have to mute while I do the pledge and moment of silence. Okay, great. If we could please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
If we could please all remain standing for a moment of silence for all that are on the front lines and all who have passed in the state of New Jersey during this pandemic. Thank you. I would like to hold a second moment of silence, please, in honor of someone that has been a dedicated resident to the Borough of Keyport and has served on many committees, as well as served on many boards and nonprofits within the Borough of Keyport. And this moment of silence is dedicated to Mr. Jim Bocci. Thank you. Tonight, I'd like to start the council meeting off with an introduction of our new full-time borough administrator, Joseph, otherwise known as Jay Delaney. He definitely has jumped right in. We've had a lot of fires he's had to already put out, as well as jump into some projects that were having some bumpy roads. By way of introduction officially, Mr. Jay Delaney is here this evening, and I will introduce him, and he would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to
both the members of council that I've had a chance to meet face to face, as well as those that have called in or even just sent greetings via the pandemic-induced emails. I certainly I'm happy to be here. I look forward to working with all of you. As the mayor indicated, my couple of weeks here have been filled with enjoyable opportunities to get to know the town. And in some cases, get to go out in the middle of rainstorms and other weather events. I don't know whether it's, so far we've had extreme heat, extreme rain. So I'm ready. I've got the boots in the car just in case.
Great. Thank you and welcome. At this point in time, I'd like a motion to open to the public for comments on items listed on the agenda.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, anyone from the, actually, Michelle will have to unmute everyone. Okay, if any members of the public would like to discuss anything that's listed on the agenda, if you're visible and on video, if you could please raise your hand, and then we'll go to call-ins after.
Yes, hi.
Video? Are you raising your hand, Mr. Baloo? I'm going to go with no.
No.
No, I'm not.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone else on video on the second page maybe, or are they all phone calls? Okay, so there's no hands raised. So now we'll go to phone calls. I believe I heard Mr. Graham.
Yes, hi. Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Where on the website is the agenda at?
It's under the agenda section under the clerk.
Okay, I don't even see Borough Clerk on here.
So if you go to the municipal tab. and then
Yes,
you
I did.
click on- Okay, and then you go to the left-hand side. There's one that says clerk.
It doesn't say Borough Clerk on here.
Under departments and offices?
Oh, departments and offices, sorry. Is there one
Okay,
that
hold
says
on.
Departments and offices?
Oh, there it is, Borough Clerk.
Perfect.
Okay, and I'm getting on the agenda now.
Okay. We can circle through and see if anyone else, and come back to you if you'd like to peruse the agenda first, Mr. Graham.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the public wish to speak on any items on the agenda?
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport.
Mr. Lane?
I'm sorry, do I have the floor?
Yes.
Pardon?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Good, a planning board issue. Would you report on any progress that's been made in the last month regarding the need for the pump station at 25 East Front, which is a requirement of the planning board, which hasn't been fulfilled? Councilman Fotopoulos and Councilwoman Pacheco. There was an item brought up at the Harbor Commission meeting relative to the location of the floodgates on American Legion Drive by Fireman's Park, and the fact that when we have flooding, nuisance flooding that requires the operation of the gates, generally Fireman's Park is flooded to the point where you would not want to divert cars into Fireman's Park. I sent multiple pictures to members of the council last week showing history of flooding. And so what's the status of closure of that issue? Also, resolution 186-20, which is does this amendment reset the 45-day clock for a report from the planning board? That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Graham?
Yeah, hold, you can come back to me. I'm still trying to get to it.
Okay. Anyone else from the public? If anyone from the public wishes to speak, just make sure you hit the mute button. Or unmute button, technically. Okay, Mr. Graham, we're going to circle back to you.
All right. Let's see. Can you explain resolution 206-20?
I'm going to defer that to Mr. Moon.
Okay.
All right, so there is a statute in New Jersey called the Municipal Services Act. It deals primarily with private residences, like developments and condominiums. And because they're taxpayers, they're entitled to certain municipal services, including snow plowing and municipal waste collection. This was Homedale Point was a private development that was utilized, and under the statute, if they utilize private solid waste collection or private snow plowing or anything like that, they're entitled to a reimbursement from the municipality for the amount they would have paid, their proportional cost of the services for the municipality. So we had received a claim and a demand from the development, and I was able to negotiate a settlement to resolve that claim with them.
Okay, now that's all well and good and stuff like that, but what effect is this going to have on the taxpayers at Keyport?
Well, my understanding is that we knew that this was coming. There was an amount that was budgeted for this settlement, and the other issue is that moving forward, it's no longer an issue because Homedale Point is now part of the municipal collection that the borough's vendor now performs. So it's not going to have an issue moving forward. This is just a one-time settlement for all the prior claims.
Oh, okay. And one more thing on resolution 212-20, can you all explain that?
I can. I'm not sure that unless Jay wants to. The background on that is salary comparison for various titles within the municipality was performed by the agency that we had hired as consultants. And we are bringing our superintendent up to a comparative wage.
Okay, how long has he been the superintendent of public works in Keyport?
For a year and 1 month, a year and 21 days.
Okay, so of course his salary. Okay, now his salary increase, that's gonna, of course, the taxpayers are gonna pay for that, right?
Correct, and I believe that it's well worth for the work that he provides to our municipality.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Anyone else from the public? If you're on the phone, please hit the mute since we can't see you raise your hand. Going once, going twice. Anyone from the public on the phone, please unmute your phone so we can hear you. You know, we don't hear anyone else from the public. Can I please have a motion to close to the public?
Motion to close.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll move on to committee reports for council members. Councilman Cooper,
Nothing this month, thank you.
thank you. Councilman Fitopoulos.
Thank you, Mayor. Just getting my notes. The Health Department, the report is included in the packet. There was one item of note from the Humane Society report that was submitted by Donna Purcell. As a general aside, 2 opossums were relocated. Now, I know that sounds silly, but I wanted to just point out to the public that opossums aren't necessarily aggressive, and they live in burrows created by other animals. And they actually keep the tick population down and at bay in our town. And so I'm just asking that you consider leaving them alone before having them removed if they're not any nuisance other than sometimes they aren't too pleasant to look at, I guess. I think they're kind of cool, but I just wanted to point that out. Recycling, we've received many inquiries as to the recycling center and when it's going to reopen. While the recycling center is closed, and hopefully it won't be for much longer, I'd like to remind all citizens that services that the recycling center usually perform have not ceased. As a matter of fact, it's probably a little bit easier. You need only call Donna Purcell in the health department to have your recyclable items picked up, like leaves, branches, large bulk items, and cardboard, etc. And if it doesn't qualify for the recycling center, Ms. Purcell will let you know. The number you can reach her at is 732-739-5154. Again, it's Donna Purcell, 732-739-5154. The Environmental Commission, there's nothing really to report from the Environmental Commission meeting, other than there are some ongoing projects that we're hoping to continue in the fall, like beach cleanups and the replantings are probably going to be postponed. The trees replantings are definitely going to be postponed until the spring. But we're hoping to get a little bit of work done on the dunes this year to continue the great work that's been going on over there. In addition to that, we'd like to see the beach cleanup get done in October. That's sponsored by Clean Up Ocean Action. We've not heard anything as of this date yet. Also, I'm happy to report that I found out this just Friday last week that there was a group of citizens from Piscataway that wanted to do a beach cleanup in Keyport, and that was well coordinated by Tom Gallo, our Clean Communities coordinator. And I haven't heard how it went down, but if they, since Tom was coordinating it, I'm sure it was a stellar success. I was hoping to get involved in that, but I went on my second fishing trip this year on the Keyport Princess. That is all I have to report at the moment, Mayor. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilman Good.
Thank you, Mayor. With regard to the fire department, the calls for service in the month of June, had a couple of building fires, 4 medical assists, watercraft rescue, vehicle accident cleanup, 21 calls with 119 man hours, bringing our total for the year up to 125 calls and about 1,050 man hours. Our, fire department as well as our first aid continue to respond in spite of the epidemics. With regard to the, the planning board, well, we had a meeting last month. I think we're just going through housekeeping items, really. No development projects have been, at least we're not having hearings on them. With regard to the redevelopment, in the agenda, you see a couple of letters from some citizens requesting at least to purchase some properties in town. I know we are setting up a meeting with a couple of individuals to see what their plans are. And with regard to the other approved projects in town, as far as I understand, they haven't really moved along, and we're trying to goad those developers into moving a little bit quicker. Let's see. Mr. Lane's question about the pump station. We haven't gotten a response from the owner of the plaza. Nevertheless, the pump station is required to be in working order for them to, as part of their project, as part of the approval. So we're either going to hear from the developer or the owner about what they're going to do prior to it, or our engineers are going to be including it in the bonded improvement amount so that it is part and parcel with the improvements that they have to complete. So to answer Mr. Lane's question about who is going to be checking up on that, at the end of the day, it's going to be our engineers that are going to be signing off on whether or not the improvements have been completed. And I believe that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Good, can you just make a note and follow up with Jay and Chief Crowley before things possibly make a rebound in New Jersey in this pandemic, to see if we can make sure we get enough of the masks that are needed so that they can get the fit test machine up and running?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. I just thought of it when you were so thank you. Councilman McDermott.
So regarding the recreation, it's noted in communications by consent in today's meeting. There was request to shift the drive-in movie night from one night to 3 regular movie nights to be held at the Waterfront Park on July 27th, August 10th, and August 24th, with rain dates the next day. Again, they'll be following social distancing and allowances to social gatherings as required by the governor. And again, we do think this would be a nice alternative versus a car, and we hope this gets approved today. The summer waterfront activities for Tai Chi and yoga have been kicked off, and it was well received. We've had some really good attendance at these. We do expect to have a final count in September after the program ends. Because enrollment continues to be open for anyone. Do you want me to stop? Okay. It continues to be open for anyone who decides to enroll at the standard fee. Good news is we have all our 18 lockers vented and reserved. The kayak stand-up, the SUPs and kayak lockers have all been vented and along the approved application guidelines. The skate park continues to be closed as we await a clearance from the JIF insurance and pending approval by Council of Ordinance number 5-30, adopting rules and regulations for use and resolution to R20820, authorizes signage with rules for the Main Street parking facility. Again, once we do these things, we still need to wait for a JIF to authorize and clear once we get all that stuff done. The Senior Center Zoom sessions continue to help with senior engagement and safe socializing among themselves and the community. There is an ordinance has been introduced to help with repairs that are direly needed at the Senior Center at about $40,000 for various improvements, pending approval. Regarding Public Works construction zoning, I want to reiterate the use of the official request for service link on the keyportonline.com to report non-emergency issues within a borough. This helps us track and monitor and do root cause analysis versus emails and social media. Construction report, UCC inspections, 113, UCC and violations, 2, housing inspections, 37, property registration, 4, zoning applications, 37. So overall, we've had $14,440 paid to the borough, with $750 paid for state fees. The Department of Public Works, The seasonal staff is expected to start, at least one start next week, and they will help with early and late shift garbage collections and other activities that we'll be holding at night, such as the movie nights. We're also working on official hydrant tags for non-working fire hydrants that will be purchased shortly under the guidance for the Borough Administrator Jay and Department of Public Works Superintendent. Clean Communities, total number of man-made pieces collected for this period was 7,946. Total to date, 12,605. To reiterate what was said before, we did have volunteers at Cedar Street Park. That was done by J-Works volunteers at no cost to the borough, and they did really collect a lot of significant trash and debris. Streets are patrolled for litter at least once a day with higher frequency at high traffic areas. And in Clean Communities works to clean up hot spots such as dead end streets or trails locations. Volunteer cleanups are not allowed at this time yet by the New Jersey DOC. We're hoping that gets lifted so that we can do some of these activities and have volunteer opportunities. NPP, we want you to visit the borough website for NPP details and plans and great for anything related to the neighborhood preservation plan. Landscaping at Fireman's Park is estimated to start the first week of September. The library roof work starts on about July 29th. Road closure arm gates have been received, and DPW is working to install these once you have a concrete pour lined up, pending approval by the Police Chief Hafner. And regarding location of it, I will defer to if the chief is here, if he can answer that as to why the location is placed there. It was under his supervision and direction. And do you want me, if you're on the phone, if you want to go ahead and add, and I'll continue on with my report, or do you prefer to wait?
I can speak to the gates now. I had a conversation with Captain Torres. Circled back. They were those, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Captain. Those places were determined through the engineers and the DOT based on traffic safety opinions and those experts. So the police used those opinions to make their decision. I do believe that we may be circling back very quickly once they do the concrete pour, just to have those discussions one more time. But those were picked by the engineers and DOT were the recommendations.
Thank you. Reimbursement for parts of the grants was sent over to the state on July 9th, 2020. We anticipate the next reimbursement to be done in September, and will account for about 75% of the planned project budget. We continue to scout locations along the approved NPP map. There will be plans to set up an NPP Facebook. And new projects, if approved by council, will include 2 West Front Street, which is currently in the agenda. KBBC, Farmers Market continues every Thursday at Fireman's Lot. So that's, please visit. It's a great opportunity to get some fresh vegetables and things like that. We also have another vendor that's been added on there. Updates on new programs for businesses or borough events will be shared on Facebook or visit keyport.org website. I do want to announce, and probably more details be coming maybe from the mayor's report, but Monmouth County freeholders have allocated $10 million of CARES Act funding to county small business communities. For eligibility and details, you can go to visitkeyport.org and www.visitmonmouth.org websites. And they have certain restrictions, qualifications, and it's actually a great opportunity for our businesses in town to get some COVID-19 relief and also some grants. And that is my report. Thank you.
Councilwoman, can you just confirm, Councilwoman McDermott, you mentioned something about the first week of September. You said the skate park and first week of September.
No, okay, so they're 2 different things. I didn't mention the first one. So there's gonna be, once we get approval for the skate park, we intend to have a soft opening. So we're hoping that this will happen some point this month. But the rec committee is working on an official kickoff in September, but that's also pending social distancing allowances and social gathering allowances.
Okay. And I think latest communication that came in today is that may even be moved to October, just for them to be able to, if we're even allowed to, but I just didn't hear what you had said. Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Pacheco?
So police report, we had 866 calls with 30 case files. I know people wanted to know 2 Narcans and 1 DWI. PD had special officers assigned to the waterfront as well as doing routine checks for social distancing. Thank you to the police department, the fire department, and the first aid for not only their continued work in this pandemic, but in particular to their swift response to a recent fire at Xavier Street. So good job once again, no surprise. Harbor Commission was actually canceled due to lack of quorum. We just had a quick moment to talk and that was it. MPP's been done. So Green Team next meeting is next Tuesday at 7. I was actually at the cleanup at Cedar Street this Saturday. It was very well done. It was social distancing. We were wearing masks. It was very hot. But this group is, kind of committed to sustainable energy and cleaning up the beaches. And so it was nice to meet them. And I've also tried to connect with them. I put them, Mike Palmer from the Environmental Commission there. So hopefully the 2 groups can connect and maybe do more work. Complete Streets, we actually had a meeting right before this to kind of prepare for tomorrow. We're going to have a meeting to discuss the demonstration project tomorrow. The stakeholder interviews have begun. So if you've been scheduled for one of those, thank you very much. I think that's it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Sheridan?
Thank you, Mayor. The Keyport Skipper bus was inspected by New Jersey Transit on June 25th. We found a couple items that have been fixed. Historical Society Museum is discussing how to open and stay safe, maybe with some virtual visits and things like that. The local emergency planning committee, OEM Ken Crowey, distributed new guidelines for shelters in place. And so we'll be meeting soon to see how we can do that in Keyport, especially with hurricane season. Finance had a meeting this past Thursday to discuss borough manning issues in 2020. The Veterans Initiative was skipped its July meeting. And lastly, I want to welcome our business administrator, Joe Delaney. I had a chance to have him in the meeting, in the finance meeting, and I believe he's going to bring a lot to Keyport. And I'm very happy that he's with us. And I did have one last thing, and with this crazy heat lately, I really want to thank the Keyport Police, who are always in full uniforms and vests, and they never show duress in all this heat. And I really hope they hydrate and stay cool if they can. But it's just it's a job where you can't take 1 minute off. You always have to be on your guard, and they stay very professional, and especially in this heat, so my hat's off to them, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry. Can I just make a correction to my report? I can wait until after yours if you'd like.
No, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I have to correct the phone number because the one I gave you is the recycling phone number that goes to a voicemail, I believe. The correct number for Ms. Purcell is 732-739-5136. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you. No worries. I don't have a quote-unquote official report this evening, but I would like to give a couple updates. The library continues to pursue things virtually, as well as beginning their phase 1 plan with curbside pickup, and the book return has reopened and newly painted, fresh looking, thanks to the MPP grant book return. As well as doing other things such as children craft pickup curbside every Friday afternoon for the month of July. But hats off to them for continuing to work on innovative ways to still have people active in the library, whether it's getting more magazine subscription online for library card holders, or working on seeing if they can extend the online movie subscription, the amount that you can rent per month during the pandemic. But they've definitely done a great job being active during the pandemic. I would also like to report that we, in the last month or 6 weeks, we've had one complete building demolition, which was a property on the scattered site redevelopment plan out on the highway, the former locksmith building next to Stop and Shop. So that has completely leveled, which is great to no longer see that eyesore on the highway, as well as 108 Broad Street has begun their demolition process. So thank you to all that worked with making those eyesores in our borough come down. I've also been staying on top of all executive orders that have been issued by the state and communications with the Monmouth County government, as well as keeping the borough administrator up to date in his first 2 weeks with some emergencies, including some flooding that occurred on the Division Street water outfall pipe during Tropical Storm Faye. A couple more hiccups with the water treatment plant being switched online, as well as 2 major roof issues in our municipal buildings that continue to worsen. One at the senior center, which has caused an environmental issue with mold, but hopefully after this evening, if everything is passed, we can get a quick remedy to that. And I know there's still communication going on about the very unfortunate roof conditions and leaks that continue in the police department. So those are all still at the top of everyone's priority in trying to get all of that solved. So that concludes my report for right now. If I can move on to the consent agenda, do any members of the council choose to discuss any of the items on the consent agenda? Councilmember Checker, did you say something?
No, I was gonna say something, but it's okay. Kind of can't, I can hear.
Mayor, I
just wanna
have, I
make
remember
sure
what-
that the members of the council received the email this afternoon, that resolution 21020 and 21120.
I just need to step away for a second. I just want.
The correct address for the mural that's in discussion on those 2 items is 1 West Front Street. The resolution in the packet was updated. And you received it's posted online now with the 1 West Front Street, so I just want to make sure you guys were all aware of that. And the new liquor license number of 21820. So that was the only updates, right? And the 18620, which is just an amended resolution. So I will summarize what the amended is, and then if I'm incorrect or I missed something, Councilman Good, if you can chime in. The reason it's amended is that the plan that was actually deferred to the planning board was inclusive of lot 52, but it just was not listed in the original title, and I felt for full transparency, I wanted that noted on a council agenda. The reason it hadn't been noted was because the properties that were originally part of this entire plan were part, or the lots and parcels that were on the scattered site redevelopment plan that was approved by council in December of 2018. Lot 52 is not part of the scattered site. It's actually a property trade-off agreement with a separate property owner that took place after the scattered site. So in theory, it didn't really need to be listed, but for full transparency, we wanted to list it. Councilman Good, is that the proper explanation?
Yeah, yes, Mayor, with the only caveat that the 52 is part of the redevelopment plan. It just it still encompasses in the plan itself. It just wasn't a scattered site property, but because of the way the development is, it's included. That's just the reference.
Right, okay. Thank you. Are there any council members that choose to discuss anything before we move forward on the resolution? I'm not seeing everybody. Okay. Can I please have a motion with the approval of items 18620 through 21820?
Motion.
Second.
Can I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos,
Yes.
and Councilmember Good,
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
and Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have public hearing adoption of ordinances. Bond ordinance 5-20, multi-purpose bond ordinance. Michelle, would you mind reading that, please?
Bond ordinance 5-20 is an ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the borough of Keyport in the county of Monmouth, New Jersey, appropriating $1,591,498 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,100,000 bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof.
Yeah.
Being that this is the adoption, and can I please have a motion to open to the public?
Motion.
Have a second? please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on bond ordinance 5-20?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Graham?
Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. How much of an effect will this have on the taxpayers at Keyport?
Mr. Delaney, can I defer that to you?
Thank you, Mayor. The bond ordinance provides for just over $1 million in indebtedness. The balance of the funding is in the form of grants from various sources, primarily the Community Development Block Grant, as well as DOT funds. These improvements carry expected useful periods of between 10 and 15 years. The overall impact to the taxpayers will be approximately $100,000 per year over a 10-year period. These are long-term improvements for roadways and facility improvements and infrastructure. These have been anticipated as part of the capital plan. As other indebtedness is paid off, these come online. So the overall impact is that intended and anticipated that the ongoing process of paying down debt will cover these increased costs moving forward.
Okay, will that cause an increase in our taxes or what?
Well, all things being equal, there would be a trade-off with negligible or nearly no increase. But again, that is based on paying down existing debt.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mayor, sorry to interrupt, but I think when Jay speaks, maybe you should mute yours because there seems to be an echo. And the only way I would think that there's an echo because I don't see you muting when Jay speaks. So maybe we
I
could
thought
try.
I had muted. I apologize.
Maybe we could try. All right, thank you.
Anyone else in the public wish to speak on bond ordinance 5-20?
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport.
Go ahead, Mr. Lane.
My focus on this issue of the multipurpose bond is on the TAP pedestrian safety improvement part of the project. What is the $141,498 funding going to be used for?
I'll defer that to Jay or Council President Sheridan.
I would have to look. I'll get back to you on that, Mr. Lane.
Well, my concern is when I look at the budget put together, I'm trying to understand whether this is the funding for just the CME work that's going to be 100% refunded by the state, or is this funding for actual construction work?
I believe that question was answered by Mr. Fallon when you asked that question when we were talking about the budget. But I can go over an exact answer on that $141,000. But we were going to also have meetings on that TAP grant.
Well, that was my next question. So when are we going to have stakeholder meetings? This project was supposed to be focused after a set of stakeholder meetings, so we haven't had any.
Understood.
Mike, do you have a copy of the ordinance itself?
Yeah.
Okay. And you see at the end where it has a high level explanation of what it's going to, right?
Yeah, I read the high level explanation. It didn't answer my. It says that provides for the preliminary design for the construction of pedestrian improvements along Maple Place, Broad, West Front Street, and First Street, including all work and materials necessary. So
Delaney's going to comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the ordinance, as it indicates, does provide for preliminary design for the construction. This phase of the project is on the design. Actual construction would follow. So there is no specific recommendation or determination at this point on the extent or nature of the construction. This is the design phase.
all right, now, the design phase was supposed to be preceded by stakeholders meetings. There's been a lot of people on First Street that have been put a lot of effort in to try to get this thing moving, and we've had no stakeholder meetings.
Mr. Lane, I don't know that they're going to be writing the check out for that amount right away. I think that's to allocate the money since we're going out to bond so that we have the money so that after the stakeholder meetings, then they can go out to design. That is how I would understand the process to be going.
So,
or Council President, would that be correct?
Yes, and in fact, this is funding that stakeholder process. This is simply the financing mechanism so that we can spend those funds for the preliminary design. And it's my understanding that the stakeholder meetings and the other public input is part of that process.
I look forward to that. I'll just make another comment. When Joe Sheridan, Councilman Sheridan, mentioned the last budget meeting, and at that budget meeting, I input that the fact that there was mislabeling of the TAP program as a streetscape program, and that the program had been expanded to $1.1 million. I looked at the budget that had been approved, and all that information is unchanged. I don't understand. You go on the borough website and you look up the budget that's quote signed, and it's unchanged. And I thought we left the meeting that it was going to be changed. That the titles was going to be changed from streetscape improvements to pedestrian safety project.
Okay.
And that the funding was going to be the $560,000 plus the engineering support that is coming from the state, which takes it up to $600 and some thousand and change.
Okay.
And so I don't understand why the budget
Can
sheets
you
weren't.
follow up with Jay on that since he wasn't here for the budget hearing? Can you just make sure that that adjustment gets corrected?
All right, I'll get him an answer as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you. I look forward to the stakeholders meetings.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public have comment on bond ordinance 5-20? If anyone's on the public and on the phone, if you could please unmute yourself if you want to speak about bond ordinance 5-20. Please have a motion to close to the public.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Please have a motion to adopt bond ordinance 5-20.
Motion.
Second.
Please have a roll call, Michelle.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos,
Yes.
and Councilmember Good,
Yes.
and Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
and Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion authorizing the clerk to publish the ordinance as adopted?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any no or abstain? Motion carries. Next, we have ordinance 6-20, adopting rules and regulations for use of the skate park. Michelle, can you please read it by title?
It's an ordinance of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, establishing Chapter 4, Section 29 of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Keyport.
Can I please have a motion to open to the public?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on ordinance number 6-20?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Graham.
Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Simple question. Can you all explain these rules and regulations for it, the skate park?
The purpose of having the rules of the via ordinance is that allows if any enforcement issues have to be taken, if people are not adhering to the general rules, it gives the police department backing to be able to issue a summons.
Okay, and one more question. Why are we having a skate park in the first place?
Because it was a desire of members of the public for a long time, and our previous administrator worked hard to secure grant funding so that it did not come at the cost of the taxpayers.
Okay, well, I just have one comment in regard to that. I hope you have pretty good insurance and stuff like that, because God forbid someone gets hurt in that skate park, and it may have an effect on the taxpayers at Keyport.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the members of the public wish to speak on ordinance number 6-20? Michelle, are they unmuted to be able to unmute themselves? Okay, so anyone that's on the phone, you have to unmute yourself if you want to speak. So I'll call again. Any members of the public wish to speak on ordinance 6-20? What, did you hear someone? Oh. Being there's no one coming forward, can I please have a motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I please have a motion to adopt ordinance 6-20?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Can I please have a roll call, Michelle?
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
and Councilmember Fotopoulos,
Yes.
and Councilmember Good,
Yes.
and Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
and Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Can I please have a motion authorizing the clerk to publish the ordinance as adopted?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstain or noes? Motion carries. Do we have the resolution now? After, okay. Next we have ordinance number 7-20, removing requirement for payment of fee to obtain a demolition permit. Michelle, can you please read the ordinance?
This is an ordinance of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, removing the fee for the demolition permit.
Can I have a motion to open to the public?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on ordinance 7-20?
Yes,
Mr. Graham?
Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Simple question. Can you all explain this ordinance?
It removes the fee for the demolition permit.
Okay. What, they don't have to pay anything on this permit or what?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak on ordinance 7-20?
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport.
Yes, Mr. Lane?
Regarding this ordinance, I really need some explanation as to what's the stimulus for removing this fee. My experience in demolishing homes, which I've been involved in, doing the engineering work on, the first step in a demolition project generally involves disconnecting the utilities, sewer, water, electric, by a licensed craftsperson, and inspection of the work by a construction official or a township official. These sewer lines and water lines really have to be properly terminated, kept. Then there is the additional inspection to verify that the site has been cleaned up, including filling basements, holes. These inspections cost.
Mr. Lane, if I can speak on that, this doesn't remove any of those items. The responsibility used to be on the borough to cap the water and the different utilities. So it was a fee that was in place a while ago to cover the cost of our employees going out to do that. As far as the inspections and the requirements for demos to continue, it's not removing the permit, it's removing the fees that were technically not properly charged, is my understanding of what this is all about. But I'll confirm with Mr. Delaney and Mr. Moon if I'm correct on this explanation.
Yeah, the notes that I have when the request came in for the preparation of the ordinance was just as you explained it. The inspections to occur, it's just because the borough no longer does the actual cutting and capping. The request is made to remove that fee altogether.
Are you saying the $70 paid for capping? I mean, you have to trench down probably 8 feet. You have to clear the pipe. You have to properly cap it. That whole process.
That's why the whole thing was an antiquated fee. It really didn't belong in there because we weren't doing it. And it's really at the property owner's expense to have that taken care of then.
All right. So my question is, my perception is that the fee for a demolition really ought to be a function of the complexity of the demolition, the size of the area being demolished, the cost of the demolition. Do we have any fee for that? And I can tell you other towns do.
The applicant is the one that actually incurs those fees because they're the ones that have to hire the private contractor to perform those functions.
No, I'm talking about fees for the borough to go in and inspect and certify that this has been done properly. I'll give you an example. When on Prospect and First, when there was an illegal conversion of a garage into a third dwelling on a single family property, the borough engineer went out and was at the site during the whole period of removal and capping of that illegal work. And that costs money. And so do we, in the project, the home that I had in Middletown, which was a 150-year-old house, I had to pay for inspections for all the capping. I had to have certified craftspeople, and then to fill the basement and put all the top to fill in had to be proof that it was clean. All that involved inspection and cost.
That would be part of the construction department fees, in my understanding. So I'm not believing that that's waived, but this is the actual utilities capping. So inspections will still be taking place.
So what document describes the demolition work that's going to be done?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question.
I mean, if I go in and put a 3-sentence statement in, I want to demolish the house, get a permit, that doesn't describe the work.
There's still an application process, is my understanding. It's just that this part of the application process that is not responsibility of the borough any longer is being removed from that part of application process.
Well, I read the ordinance. It just says demolition permit, $70.
If I may, Mayor, there is still a requirement under the construction code for demolition permits to be issued. Part of that process requires certification by licensed technicians for all aspects, including the removal and disconnection of all utilities. It is my understanding that this ordinance eliminates and removes what was at one time referred to as a demolition permit under the water sewer utility regulations. And as it's been explained, previously that work was performed by borough personnel at a admittedly reduced fee based on today's economics. This removes that because the requirement for the disconnection lies with the property owner. So there is still a permitting process through the construction code. There are still inspections and certifications required, but this aspect has been eliminated because the borough is no longer performing the utility disconnections.
That's not the way the ordinance is written, saying it's utility disconnect.
It is utility disconnect, but as far as uniform construction code, all of those laws still need to be followed.
All right, so where is it defined in the borough ordinances what the expenses are? These expenses that you just explained.
It would be part of the fee structure of the uniform construction code, is my understanding. As well as anything that went forward in their bond packaging if they had a larger development.
Mr. Lane, it's Article 12-1.6. That's the construction fee outline.
All right, 12-1.6. That's a borough article?
Yes, and the demolition for residential, which we're not getting rid of, is my understanding, is $200 for residential, $50 for an accessory structure. And then there are definitions for other use groups up to 5,000 square feet and over 5,000 square feet.
Thanks, Councilman.
Thank you for the insight.
Could and Fotopoulos.
Thank you for the insight. It also reflects that we need to complete the project Mr. Gallo said we were going to do, is getting all the borough ordinances online.
We're almost there, Mr. Lane.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Councilman Good and Fotopoulos and Mr. Delaney. Anyone else in the public wish to speak on ordinance 7-20? If anyone from the public is on the phone, please unmute your phone if you want to speak on ordinance 7-20. Going once, going twice. Can I please have a motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I please have a motion to adopt ordinance 7-20?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Can I please have a roll call, Michelle?
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
and Councilmember Fotopoulos,
Yes.
Councilmember Good,
Yes.
and Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion authorizing the clerk to publish ordinance as adopted?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any ayes or abstain? Motion carries. Next, we have a resolution 208-20. The reason I had asked for this not to be listed with the regular resolutions is because I felt it was counterproductive and presumptuous to vote on something before the ordinance passed. So I had asked for this to be listed as a separate resolution since the ordinance did pass. Can I please have a motion to approve resolution 208-20 so that signs can be made acknowledging the rules of the ordinance of the skate park?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Is there a roll call, Michelle?
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
and Councilmember Fotopoulos,
Yes.
and Councilmember Good,
Yes.
and Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
and Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you. By way of explanation, Mr. Delaney, if you could confirm after I just make this update, now that the ordinance has been approved and we can go forward with having the sign printed, the next steps would be to have the signs installed after we receive them, and then for the JIF insurance to sign off on that last requirement, and then we can hopefully have a soft opening of the skate park next week, possibly. Are we still at that, or we're not sure yet?
Yes, Mayor, with the formal adoption of the ordinance behind us, once it is the notice of publication of notice of adoption is completed, we expect that we will be posting temporary signs. The JIF has already reviewed the regulations. Once we send them photographic evidence that the signs have been placed, then we have clearance to move forward and operate the skate park. There's just a little bit of, once that is done, there's some prep that's needed just in terms of removal of the construction fence, some of those items. But we do expect the park will be ready to open sometime next week.
Okay, thank you. And
Mayor, if I
just
may?
to confirm that, that will also, I referenced the skate park, but I really mean cumbersome. I mean, Main Street as in the whole and cumbersome, including the playground and the ball field, correct? Once it's up.
Mayor Jay, I don't know if you spoke with anyone from the at the inspection, but my understanding was we're also going to wait. We also need to get a formal approval based on the JIF's meeting schedule. I don't know. I believe it's either sometime the end of this month or it might be the beginning of August. I don't recollect. I don't know if you spoke when they did, since they did the inspection.
I think I forgot about that piece, but I think we were originally thinking we had to wait for a 20-day publication, but we don't. So I thought we would still fall in that window. So you're right. So either way, if you could just find that date for us, Mr. Moon, from the JIF, and then we'll refer that to Jay. I just want to make sure when we do a soft opening, that we show regards and respect to the members of the Recreation Committee who fought hard for this for 10 years to make this come to fruition. So I just would like them to be there, even though it's not the grand opening. I feel like they should be kept apprised when we are able to do that.
Yes, thank you for that. We will double check with the JIF to make sure that there's no formal authorization required on their side. I know the inspection was completed last week, so we'll move forward with that.
The good news is that we can see this happening sooner rather than later. So that's exciting.
We'll get the ball field tuned up, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
sent an email today that the whole property kind of spruced up and maintenanced.
Good.
I would be remiss if I didn't go back and announce when we started talking about the demo permit, I forgot there's a third building in down. The Kirk's tax collector building is now down too. So that's 3 buildings within the borough. And another announcement was that I believe permits have been taken out for the 333 First Street project. So hopefully we see some kind of action moving forward there soon. Okay, next we go into introduction of ordinance. Number 1, ordinance appropriating funds for improvements for the senior center. This is basically an urgent matter. As Mr. Delaney mentioned, Tropical Storm Faye, he needed to enter the building as well as DPW wearing boots and using an umbrella inside the building. So it is at a beyond emergency repair at this point. So Michelle, if you could please read the ordinance by title.
This is an ordinance appropriating the sum of $40,000 currently located within the Capital Improvement Fund of the Borough of Keyport for improvements to the senior center.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to introduce?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Please have roll call, Michelle.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos,
Yes.
Councilmember Good,
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion authorizing the clerk to publish the ordinance as introduced in the Asbury Park Press for a public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain or no? Okay, thank you. Next, we have communications by consent, item 1 through 7. And then to receive and file are items 8 through 13. Do any members of council have any discussion for any of the items 1 through 13?
Item number 7. Are we, tell me, I read the letter. What are we doing as far as the ongoing issues, hiccups as we call them? With regards,
Mr. Delaney wants to comment on that.
It is my understanding that at the last meeting, there was a pay request that was removed from the bill list. This is to address the concerns that at that time, the request was for payment in full that would have closed out the project. This provides and retain sufficient funds, in the engineer's opinion, to cover the pump issue that was a factor in the non-functioning, or we'll use your word, the hiccup, but the issues that had been addressed or that had been observed previously. So this will ensure the pump has been replaced, but it was the engineer's recommendation that we proceed with the balance of the payment, but continue to hold the $25,000 back that would represent final payment.
and $25,000 is the number that was agreed to, correct, in the contract? We can't increase or decrease that, correct? It's a scheduled payment.
That's correct.
Okay.
If the funding, if the council, and that's why it was listed as correspondence, the pay request has been processed and is included on the bill list again. But if the council feels there's a higher amount that's necessary, this was the engineer's recommendation based on what it would cost to replace the pipe pump. And I believe his correspondence indicates sufficient funds, not only for the pump itself, but any labor involved in replacing.
And just for clarification, we're not speaking of our borough engineer. We're speaking of Mont McDonald, correct?
That's correct. The project engineer on the water plant project.
Thank you.
If I could take a minute and comment on item number 11, just like to publicly thank Monmouth County government and Freeholder Director Tom Marnone. As you might all be aware, Monmouth County was one of the 9 counties within the state of New Jersey to receive CARES funding for the COVID pandemic. I have to say, I'm rather impressed with how quickly they hired a consulting firm and streamlined the process. There'll be 3 different times where municipalities can submit for reimbursement. Nothing is guaranteed for reimbursement, but as long as it falls within the guidelines and what the federal government have put forward, then we keep track of all of those expenditures. So I'd like to also thank Tom Fallon, as well as Denise Nellis and Diana upstairs, as well also as Carrie Stencil, who have been keeping spreadsheets of what has been submitted so far. I'm happy to report that that number of $32,224.05 is the entire full amount that we submitted for a request for reimbursement for tangible items, expenses spent by the municipality between March 1st and June 14th. This does not include overtime or any other additional expenses that have been incurred. We will be able to submit another round of reimbursement for possible reimbursement, I should say, in September, and then again at the end of December. So I do want to acknowledge that in today's day and time where it seems that promises and broken statements coming from all levels of government have not been streamlined so efficiently. I do want to acknowledge that this was streamlined and we already have the check, and I believe the check has been cashed. I think that's important to note. That's important to note for the taxpayers because that $32,000 does not fall on their backs at this point for all the things that we put in place to keep our employees and our residents safe during this time. With that said, does anyone else have any commentary on items 1 through 13 from the members of council? Can I please have a motion to approve items, approve or receipt and file depending on what it is, 1 through 13?
Make a motion.
Second.
Can I please have a roll call, Michelle?
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos,
Yes.
Councilmember Good,
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Michelle, can I please have a list of reports of departments?
Report number 1 is the municipal clerk's report for June 2020. Report number 2 is the tax water sewer collector's report for June 2020. Report number 3 is the Board of Health treasurer's report for June 2020. Report number 4 is the building department monthly report for June 2020. Report number 5 is the municipal court monthly report for June 2020. And report number 6 is the Clean Communities report from May 14th through July 15th, 2020.
We apologize for the background noise. We just picked up on what it was. Can I please have a motion to approve reports 1 through 6?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any abstain or
Aye.
no? Okay, thank you. Next, we have new business. Councilwoman Pacheco, are we ready to present on that, or are we tabling that?
I don't think there's any update on Amber beyond what we spoke about the last time.
Okay, I think there was a mention that we may have them on the call tonight. Are we doing that at the next meeting?
No, we'll wait for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. As far as
Oh,
items.
Mayor, if I may, I do want to touch on the Embarrack issue as of now. I did speak with the attorney, their attorney regarding sort of their, I believe that there were some requests to see the specifics of their proposals regarding the project. While they're still sort of discussing internally, there was a little bit of concern. One, because the project is still being sort of crafted and prepared, so they're changing at the time. And the other is that because it's going to be part of ultimately a bid through the DEP to get awarded a contract, there's a concern about sort of letting their proposal get out there before they ultimately have a chance to whether or not they get the award or not. It might hurt their opportunities there. Again, I don't know how that affects whether the council has sort of any objections to specifically the consent that they had asked the borough to execute as a neighbor property owner, but that's just an issue that I wanted to raise for the council on this issue.
I think maybe best to wait until, if we have anything to discuss, we wait till the next meeting so we can apprise Jay on what the whole project is all about, and he'll give him a chance to speak with Councilwoman Pacheco.
Okay.
Is that fair, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, Jay, touch base tomorrow and figure out a time where we can chat.
Okay, thank you. In regards to the next two items on the agenda, I will take full responsibility for not having more information to present on either of those items tonight. That was my goal for this past weekend. Unfortunately, circumstances didn't lead to that. But just to give you a general idea of what it's going to be, it is to kind of follow suit for how we've been doing other things down at the waterfront and borough property. And that is to see if Jay can work with Mr. Moon to come up with a property usage agreement for the dumpster enclosure, so that the businesses that are utilizing it, since it's borough property, are have an understanding of what expectations we have of keeping up with the property. But none of that has moved forward yet at this point in time, but we do hope to have something ready by the next meeting. And the other is, there's been a long time discussion about a parking committee and forming a parking committee in the borough. So I had hoped to have guidelines ready to share with you guys, and I apologize that I don't. So perhaps we can have that ready for the next meeting.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
that was me, Dennis.
Yes.
With regards to the parking committee, and we can talk about this offline, but I'd like to recommend that we, because there's a direct correlation now with the Complete Streets effort, that we hold off on forming the parking committee until after at least the stakeholders and public sessions are done. But we can talk about that. So that might take the burden off your plate until we've completed Complete Streets.
Okay. The other items of new business that are not on the agenda, one is that when I reviewed the draft last week, I inadvertently missed something to be on the agenda for tonight, and that's a request from KBBC to potentially if they secure funding and if they get the pricing for it, to maybe put some of the outdoor larger light bulb lights in Mini Park, where we've created the outdoor dining area with all of the tables that we've moved from the MPP grant, as well as additional tables that'll be coming in from that KBBC purchase. Kind of like the streetscape lighting that you've seen in some of the other places. We actually had them up, I think, also 2 years ago for the music festival. But basically to allow KBBC to work with an electrician to kind of string them down throughout the mini park. We don't have the pricing of it yet, and we haven't had our next KBBC meeting, but I would just like to know the general pleasure of the council, if anyone has any strong disagreement to that, so that maybe at our next KBBC meeting, we can make that approval. Any members of the council, I believe Mr. Straub might be still on the call. Maybe he can chime in if that's correct wording.
Yes, Mayor, it is absolutely correct. We're looking into, matter of fact, I have a meeting tomorrow with one of the vendors to look at the site itself and see if there's a possibility of using existing electric to put up string lights. As you said, some other boroughs are using them. We've used them in the past. But since people seem to be using the picnic tables frequently, this adds a little bit ambiance to it. And by the way, the KBBC picnic tables are on the way, so that the third level will probably have its picnic tables within the next 2 weeks. So the thinking was just to, spruce it up even a little bit more now that we have the picnic tables, and put up some kind of string lighting there.
Are any members of council opposed to that?
I just have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just wondering, is this part of like a larger kind of plan to figure out solutions to outdoor dining and retail kind of thing?
Well, we had designated we had moved the 10 MPP tables over there, and then KBBC is purchasing more to put on the lower landing.
Are the 10 MPP, I'm sorry. Are the 10 NPP tables allowed to be there? Or are we eventually going to have to move them back to where they were designated?
The plan is to move them back, but we're going to be starting construction in Fireman's Park, in September. So there's no real rush to move them back until after we've done, the landscaping, whatever. Construction was the wrong word, landscaping.
The other challenge with moving them back to Fireman's Park that's been identified with all this outdoor dining is that now if you have outdoor dining that borders a street or parking, you have to have proper barricades in place, which were not originally part of the MPP funding of reconstruction of Fireman's Park. So they may be a mini park longer than we thought.
We also have Jersey barriers now. We might be able to utilize
Yeah,
in
but
any
if we're
of
going
those
to do
cases.
it down in the fireman's lot, I think they wanted, that'll be discussion for the MPP committee to come up with.
Without a doubt.
Or planters around or something.
So the lights, sure. I approve. I'm for that. Are there any discussions about any further activity or any further development in the mini park? When a couple of meetings ago when we were discussing this, we talked about perhaps having menus or some sort of format, a QR code on tables for each of the restaurants, which would enable quick access to menus, and maybe they can have some sort of delivery solution to the mini park. Not necessarily table service, but closed bag. And I like the idea of 3 levels. I like the idea of lights. I'd love the idea of a comprehensive sort of cafe atmosphere. That would be attractive not only during the day, but at night. That all of the restaurants can utilize, even the ones that have their own outdoor dining. Getting more people in a socially distant strategy, and
I think
hopefully
I think all the Thursday summer concerts are canceled, you know, at least with DPW doesn't have to like move the tables, and we could just leave them there and kind of make it a picnic pavilion.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. That's how we've had tables there, and I love that we have more there. I'd like to see more variety of the tables, like maybe a couple of tables that are 4 people or 2 people, and you know, this way it's more of like an outdoor cafe, sort of a European style. What kind of budget? How much money does the KBBC have? How much are they saving with regards to not having the concert series? And you know, I guess we're not. I haven't heard, but maybe
So,
we are or aren't
we
having the
have
music
cut out
fest.
the concerts, but we've been doing other things to get cash back into the businesses. One example would be that every Keyport High School senior graduate received $10 from Keyport Cash as a way for us to kind of acknowledge that their graduation was more unique than anyone else's and what they've incurred. And then to also have that $1,000 be allocated back to businesses into the business district. And then we've come up with other Keyport Cash strategies because we feel strongly with trying to get Keyport Cash. We've done a couple different contests, and we will be moving forward with allocating more Keyport Cash for some of the apartment complexes residents in the borough.
That's a great idea. Go ahead.
So we're really trying to get the cash back to our actual business owners.
If
And
we
then
took
make discretion of where they spend it.
If we took, say, the $30,000 that was budgeted for the music festival and invested it in the Keyport Cafe motif, is that possible? The Keyport Cash is a great idea. What it tends to do, and the contests in town tend to do, is attract mostly residents. But you know, knowing that people not only can come to come and eat at the, knowing that we're here and that they can be socially distant might help as well. A little bit of advertising, a little bit of
So there's also
improvement in
advertising
that
things
meantime.
also we're going to be discussing at our next meeting. Some of them are exciting, but we
Perfect.
don't have the pricing on them yet. And that would, I think you're going to like it. But I don't want to speak before we hear the pricing.
That's fine. What about the Keyport Cap? What about allocating some of that? If we're not going to have the music festival, allocating some of those thousands of dollars to not just the tables and the lighting, but you know, maybe
We're
going that
working
extra
on some
mile.
other ideas. We are looking into also, when we purchased the stage last year, we didn't finish all the purchasing, so it still needs stairs and a railing and potentially a ramp. So we're looking into the pricing of that stuff too, so that way as soon as we can start having things, or even if maybe we sponsor something like a talent night where there's only 1 or 2 people on the stage, but without a lot of gathering. We're trying to come up with ideas that wouldn't be large scale gatherings, but something a little bit more intimate. But we
Right, passive eating, drinking.
And
What?
You know, the other thing is that we don't want to interfere with the businesses that are trying to really promote their outdoor dining. So in the past, we had Thursday night music nights, but Berluz knew that, so they didn't book Thursday night entertainment. So we don't want to interfere with what they've now tried to do to promote, as well as Uptown Bar now has the ability for outdoor service, so they have entertainment. So, and that's one of the reasons why movie nights were moved to Monday night, so that we don't have to ask any of the businesses to cancel what they've already or what they're doing to promote their outdoor dining nights.
Understood, but I think that more tables would increase the business, not impact them. You know, if they're already packed and they've got people waiting outside, they can take. That's the whole idea of that cafe, is for takeout, right? It's just a consideration.
Yeah. So I mean, there's been plenty of people that also picnic on the lawn, and the benches are all
Absolutely.
back out now as well. So
I
It's
don't,
all things that when it's during hurricane season, we have to think about where all this stuff gets stored, who's moving it, when there's a storm coming in, who's sanitizing these on a regular basis. So there's a lot more involved in it also.
and I think it's all worth it. I think it's all worth it. So
That's why
thank
we
you.
accommodated it so far. So is any member of council opposed to KBBC moving forward with securing lighting if it's approved by the board? I don't know if you guys can unmute yourself and just so we can hear some, yeah. Is anyone opposed? Is everyone in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah, favor.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. The other item is that Jay will be working with coming up with a policy. As you guys have seen, there's a lot of hot states throughout the country, and they are changing daily. Several more states were added today as far as where it's recommended or required for people to self-quarantine for 14 days after traveling there. It's going to be getting harder and harder to monitor, especially if employees have family members in those states or, they had vacation plans and so forth. So he's going to be working with the Labor Council just to come up with guidelines on things on how we're going to possibly be monitoring employee COVID things, whether it's temperatures or what have you. So just be on the lookout, members of council. He'll circulate the policy once he comes up with it. And then the last one, Councilman Fotopoulos, do you want to discuss the order on the bay? Councilman Fotopoulos?
I was on mute. It's just a matter of whether or not we're going to be able to have court around the Bay for Ask. The president of Ask, Michelle Knox, had sent out a request to mayor and council and the administrator asking if we're pretty much going to be able to still do it.
Sorry to interrupt. I don't think the whole council got it. I think so they're not familiar.
Oh, okay.
I think it was
As
just
a
you and
rule,
I
we
that-
should, as a rule, we should be sending all that stuff to mayor and council. I would ask if is Michelle Knox on the call? Okay.
Yeah, we didn't think she could be on tonight.
The question was whether or not in September we'd be able to have the art around the bay. The response you
already been approved. She was just making sure
Yes.
council wasn't objecting to it still occurring under COVID
Okay.
things.
right, that's what I was getting to that. So have it or it's yes, it's been approved. It's whether or not they can have it, and my thinking is that we don't know yet, do we? I mean, that was the note. That was essentially the sense that was you gave her in your response, wasn't it, Mayor?
My suggestion was that as of current guidelines, it would be able to take place because it's
It would be.
usually under the 500 outdoor person. But my suggestion was that they space them out further because sometimes members of the family come and hang out and then maybe they're going to be too close. So my suggestion was, if council was in agreement with it, is that they actually start closer to the fishing pier and work down so that they're spaced out further. As long as that's the current guidelines at the time of the event.
Right. I mean, it can be stopped, by the state at any time. Do we need? I think the suggestion was well received, but do we need to? If you'd like to bring it and have some sort of vote about the spacing, that's fine with me. My suggestion is, as a whole, we reaffirm that we allow it, right? If we need to do that, but that they need to operate under the guidelines to meet or exceed the guidelines that have been sent down by the state. Social distancing, I would recommend it, limit the number of artists and space it out like you said. I don't know if they need to take the whole, they may not need to take the whole promenade, but you never know. Last year was pretty well attended.
I don't know if we need to, I'd prefer not to limit them if we can space them out further. That
Can
way,
I
'cause
just,
they said they're doing it this year as a fundraiser, so I don't want to go and limit them if we can space them out further before they ended, like,
Any right, but even if we space them out further, there's still a limit as to how far they're going to be. I'm not opposed to any of what you said in your email. I think,
okay, I
it's
just want to
just a
make sure the
matter
members
of-
of council, they were just showing respect to us and making sure that we're still okay with it.
can I make
Member
a
of council?
suggestion?
Yes,
I'm sorry, Mayor. Okay, can I just make a suggestion that when we get closer to the date, we'll probably have a better idea of the guidelines and that we revisit it at this time. I mean, right now, there's nothing, I don't see any reason to make any kind of limitation and or change. I mean, they're
100%.
allowed and let's just,
I
punt.
think they wanted to start advertising it, so they just wanted to make sure, and I think if we say to them that, it's subject to all current things, if we go back to a stay-at-home order, they won't be able to have it, or if they reduce the amount allowed out in public, they won't be able to have it. As long as they put those guidelines on it, I don't think we're opposed, am I correct?
Well, yeah, but if there's, it's good. Just, I guess what they can say is they. I don't want to tell them how to make their flyer, but everybody knows the situation we're in at the moment, and they're going to have to adhere to all social distancing guidance and mask rules and such, and
We're also on hold with the Keyport 5K.
Right, that's what I was about to say. We're actually holding off on the Keyport 5K.
So it's tough for us to be
Wait,
held.
we're holding off on the decision of the 5K. We have not made a decision of the 5K.
Right. But it's tough for us to say at this time on July 21st,
yes,
you can have
Yes.
it in September, whatever, because we don't know.
So why don't we?
I think a response back of it's subject to current guidelines at that
Absolutely.
time from the state.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyone opposed to that?
Nope.
Okay.
So we'll have Jay send back an email and
Mhm.
let them know what the guidelines are,
Well, subject to the state guidelines, right?
subject to the state guidelines.
Okay, those are my items of new business. Anyone else have anything? Any unfinished business? Attorney's report?
The report, Mayor.
Please have a motion to open to the public for 5 minutes per person.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any members from the public have anything to comment?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Hi, Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. My suggestion about the Keyport 5K run is you all go ahead and try to set it up and hold it anyway because it's going to be outside. And plus, invite Governor Murphy and the First Lady Tammy Murphy to it to see how you all are handling it and stuff like that. And maybe they can take part in it too. See what's going on here in Keyport. And another thing is, what's going on with 75 Manchester Avenue with that development there?
The redevelopment plan was submitted to the planning board for review.
Okay, it's how's that coming along?
The next planning board meeting is this Thursday.
Okay, well, I guess you can't answer that. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Yes, Ed Carew.
Hi, Mr. Crew.
Hi, my name's Ed Carew, 64 Broadway here in Keyport. Had a number of things I wanted to address, and first on my list is a welcome to Jay Delaney. It's always been my responsibility with the library trustees to take someone that's new to the borough on a tour of the library, which I affectionately call the good, the bad, and ugly tour. But fortunately now it's going to be a good tour, mostly good. So Tom, Jay, when you're available, I'd like to have maybe the mayor can give you my contact information. You can get a hold of me and we can arrange a tour.
Make the tour.
It's a good tour. There's no charge. And it has to, Jay, it has to be at your convenience, please.
Thank you.
Okay, the building across the street from the library has been somewhat of a joke for us for the past several years. And my wife was always a proponent of getting that thing torn down. So I have to tell you, just for your own personal satisfaction, that she did the happy dance that continued for quite a while. So I'm very happy that it's coming down. I don't know what's going up in its place. Perhaps you do, but getting down is good enough for me. So it's a beginning. The next on my list is to thank those responsible for including the library in the neighborhood preservation program. As a result of that, we're looking into getting a new roof. And because our roof was leaking, we've had some internal damage, and that's going to be addressed. And the steps have disintegrated in such a bad way that I don't think we could wait another 6 years to get it done. So that's also on the list for the MPP. As I speak, they're continuing to disintegrate. So it didn't happen too soon now. Number 4 on my list is the little library that I donated to the borough. I tried to see if the people at the food pantry would be interested in it, and they were interested, but it is private property, and it was a gift to the borough. So we have Janet Torsney, our director of the library, has graciously agreed to have it put up at the library. So technically, it still belongs to the borough. It's a gift to the borough, and it's on borough property. So she's thrilled with it, and certainly we will keep it up and moving. It's already been installed, and it's already being used. Mayor, you mentioned, this is number 5 for me, you mentioned the $32,224 that the freeholders, which I think we're still allowed to call them, is reimbursing the borough for expenses related to COVID-19. And the library did spend, I think, about $2,000 or so to get a deep clean going on there. So would we be reimbursed for that as part of this fund?
I'd have to check what was submitted to see if that was part of the 32,000.
Okay, because we were kind of thinking that it was, part of the approval, for that to be reimbursed to us.
I'd have to, I can't speak off the top of my head. I know there is a spreadsheet. I'll see if it was on that or if it's going on the next one.
Just keep us in mind because, we could use it. The last thing on my list just came up as you were talking about the art at the waterfront. For the past several years, well, for all the years that it's been there, I have been putting up the artwork or the screens that the people do their artwork on. And I imagine I'll be doing that again this year. I know that there's a 6-foot physical distance. I don't like that term social distance, but physical distance. And we can certainly measure a distance to conform with that. Yes, many times families do work together, but if there's going to be 4 people in a family and they all take a piece of art to do, then they're going to be 6, or we can put them 8 feet apart if that makes everybody feel more comfortable. But that's just a simple measuring thing. And last year we did start at the fishing line, and we worked all the way down past the boat. And so I don't think there's going to be a problem there. And of course, we will have water and everything to keep the paint from anybody that gets paint on the ground. We'll get it washed, scrubbed up, and washed off. So I think everything's been satisfactory in those regards. But again, it is outside. It is in the fall of the year. This could be actually the worst time of the year for it to happen too, because regular flu and COVID. So at any rate, we can do 6 feet, we can do 8 feet, but whatever the requirements are, I'm sure Michelle, when in your communication, will let me know. And that's it.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Mr. Delaney wants to comment.
Just a quick, again, thank you to Mr. Carew. I wanted to let you know that I have found my way, and I guess I'm officially a card-carrying member of the library.
You are.
And pitch there as well.
You are, and you're in for a big thrill.
Lots of online free stuff.
And when we go on our tour, like I have an honesty thing about me. I tell you the truth, whether it hurts or not. And our library's been in very bad shape for quite a long time. We have come a long way to getting it approved. And that distance, we still have a long way to go. And our new director, Janet, is extremely competent, well-versed, and she's been around the block a few times. So she is providing us with excellent guidance. And she's just a joy to talk to because she's so friendly, and she loves the library. And that's always been the top requirement for me. If you love the library, you'll do the right thing. And our library was a little antiquated and a little behind the times, but we are coming into the 21st century in leaps and bounds faster than I can, because it took me quite a while just to sign on to this program. And I did come in a little bit late, so apologize for that. But my nickname is Fred Flintstone.
Mr. Delaney had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Torsney last week.
Oh, cool. Very good. Well, welcome aboard, and I look forward to working with you, Jay.
Thank you.
And be proud of that card. Thank you very much.
Anyone else in the public wish to speak?
Mike Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport.
Yes, Mr. Lane.
On the floodgate location, it was indicated earlier that engineer recommended. What engineer recommended that?
I'm gonna refer that one to possibly to Captain Torres, but it was my understanding that the DOT was the one that made those recommendations, so engineers from there.
Well, my experience with DOT engineering, and I can give you two examples. One is the bridge over Matawan Creek, and the other is the bridges over Lupatana Creek. They don't understand the flooding. And one of the things that Mr. Gallo took away when we reviewed this situation was that we were going to make sure that the new bridge over Chingarora Creek, the roadway is going to be elevated to the bridge. And the same problem is with the Matawan Creek Bridge. The bridge is up nice and high, but the roadway floods. Now we have the same problem. The DEP engineers do not know the flood situation. And you have to be responsible for knowing the flood situation. You've received multiple emails showing the flooding.
Mr. Lane?
And yeah.
Mr. Lane.
It's Chief Hafner, if I could speak, please. I mean, if you want, you can meet me down there tomorrow or meet me in my office, but there's traffic reasons why to put that arm close to the corner like that is not recommended at all.
Well, I in my email to you, I suggested that there was a very small island that could be cut through just south of the mailboxes. It would dramatically improve the situation.
What I think is a good resolution to what you're talking about, Mr. Lane, is getting the arms up and also at the corner having a flashing yellow, like we have those stop signs that flash. The same thing with the road flooded signs. That way, it's not in jeopardy of getting crashed into, or a bicyclist hitting it. It's just that's just an area where you don't want to put that arm there, but we could still accomplish what we want to accomplish and not let anybody turn down there by having that flashing light, the solar sign that we have at Main and Maple and a couple other areas, but it'll be yellow, obviously, and it would say road flooded. So that's the intention that I have.
I agree with you 100%. The flashing light is fantastic improvement, but I think you can move the gate about halfway between where you want to put it and the corner, and which would move it up to the edge of the south edge of the post office lot. And it'd be a very simple change to put a one-way path into the parking lot from the American Legion Drive. The most severe storms are the ones where you're going to need it the most. And it's not going to work. And you already got people going around your cones and your barriers down there, and then stopping and making a U-turn, backing up into people. It's really sad because they don't want to go through Fireman's Park. They don't want to go through the water. And I really think you ought to work with the borough engineer who understands, I hope, flooding, because he said he was committed to make sure that the bridge the new bridge that's going to go over Chingarora Creek, and Jay, you may want to take this as an action item to make sure that when the DEP plans come in for the new bridge over Chingarora Creek, that the roadway elevation is going to be such that it's not constantly flooded as it is now. Second item.
Darlene, I would, if I can comment on that for a minute. I'm not on the MPD committee, nor am I the chief of police. But I would say that no matter what, barricades with sandbags and floating cones, I think the barricade that they're proposing is an improvement to that. And if they put it north of where you're anticipating or your request is for it to go, and it works at the lower level of flooding, such as items of like lunar moon tide, where it's not as significant, and we don't have to block off the entrance to the post office or the other side of the fireman's lot entrance. If it works, then maybe the next round of MPP funding, we get a second gate. And when there's more significant funding, then, significant flooding, then we have 2 gates. But either way, 1 gate is still better than the floating cones and the barricades with sandbags that the police officers have to go out in the middle of a storm sometimes. It's a lot easier to close a nice
I'm
gate.
in complete agreement, but where we're not in agreement is I don't think you're putting it in an effective place. And you need to work with the borough engineer who has started to be sensitive to the flooding.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lane.
Now, second thing, the new resolution on referral of the Manchester project to the Keyport Planning Board. Does the clock, I asked the question, does the clock restart for 45 days based on the new resolution?
No, because it was just a change and an amendment in the wording of it. The actual document did not change.
Yeah, but the document has a date that says it's effective July 21. The borough clerk's going to sign effective July 21.
For the amended resolution.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Final question. Who gets the message about the pump station at 25 East Front? Who gets that message to the borough engineer to make sure it's included?
Well, he's already familiar with it. The borough engineer is the one that is making the request to the property owner, so he's on top of that already.
He's on top of that. All right, thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Any members of the public that are calling in by phone, please unmute yourself if you'd like to speak. Any motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I don't believe we have anything for closed session since we can't go in closed session. So we have a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Stay well and be safe.
Night,
Y'all too. Good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.